Hi everyone, Ripon here from Language Academy. In this video, we are going to discuss about the techniques, methods, strategies, and rules that can help to improve our scores in the reading module of the PTE exam. So we'll try to put forward a comprehensive approach that can help us and give us numerous of backup plans when we are stuck while solving the blanks. So here we have prepared few hints for your help. So first of all, what all do we need for improving our blanks? A lot of us are trying our best to understand the context, and that is the first and the foremost thing we need to do to improve the blanks. But understanding the context not just only means understanding the meanings of the words. Understanding the context is much way beyond than that. For example, when we are reading our questions, we need to make sure that we are reading the blank sentence till the full stop and we are not stopping anywhere in between, because when we read half of the sentence and we try to find an answer to our blank, with half information, we might be assuming or presuming a wrong understanding of the context. So it's always advisable to go till the full stop so that you have a complete understanding of what the sentence is meaning, and then we can proceed accordingly. A lot of times there are contexts in which you have a blank sentence and then two or one or two sentences which are complete sentences which do not have any blanks in them, and we tend to skip those sentences. That's also not really advisable. Yes, we do have to manage the time, but at the same time, we cannot completely ignore some parts of information given to us because they can be important in solving the further parts of the question. So you can be quick, you can overgo those pieces of information, but you cannot completely skip or omit them. Then when we start reading our sentences, sometimes the sentences are very long. So to shorten the sentences, you can always eliminate a few words from that particular sentence. For example, all the words which end with ly, which are adverbs, they are not really important. They don't hold any meaning when we are looking for the answer. So you can always omit them. If you have pieces of information given between two commas, those are always additional pieces of information. So you can skip that part when you're reading your sentence. If you have similarly pieces of information given between two hyphens, that can also be eliminated to understand the sentence in a better way. Also, a lot of times we have proper nouns like names of people, names of organizations given in the context. They really are not at all important. Instead, you can just read them as Mr. A, ABC organization, ABC institute, because sometimes they cover a big portion of that particular sentence and it just makes it complicated to understand. So that's something we can do. When we are solving our questions, paying attention to connectors. But however, nevertheless, moreover, therefore, despite, although, they give you an idea about which side the information is flowing and you can think accordingly. So keeping in mind and justifying connectors wherever you see them, it's one of the most important things. Then we have pronouns in a lot of questions. So questioning the pronouns, if we read a sentence just as it is very important, and in place of that it, if we put the right word, the sentence makes more sense to us. And at the end, noting the overall subject area, there are questions which particularly belong to a certain field or a certain domain. For example, there can be a question from medical domain, there can be a question from engineering domain. So the choice of answers, the choice of vocabulary that we use to solve those kinds of questions can only be done if we keep that domain in mind. A lot of times we have synonyms given in the options, two words which mean the same. So at that point of time, if you pay attention to, okay, I'm in medical context, so I'll select a word which more likely will be used in a medical field. So that can serve as a hint. We have examples for all these things to understand them better. So this is an example of context-based question in which our answers are somewhere given as hints in the passage itself. For example, this says, when we are very concerned about certain of our physical dash. Now, probably a student might stop here and start to look for the answer, which was our first rule, that always read the sentence till the full stop. So we are concerned about certain of our physical dash, a nose that is stubbornly a bit too large, eyes that are slightly too far apart, hair that is not as lustrous as it should be. We miss on overall point about our relationship to our appearance. Reading complete sentence because it can be physical word matching with a lot of options. Physical components is also a thing, physical gestures is also a thing, physical features is also a thing. How do we know which aspect is the context about? But when we read ahead, they say they were talking about nose, eyes, hair. That means we were talking about the physical features because these are the features of human body. Going ahead, how beautiful we feel has nothing to do with the dash structure of our body or face. So here we have options: reflective structure, objective, conjunctive, or subjective. Reflective structure, reflective words comes from the word reflect. There will be numerous of times when we will be having options, words whose exact meanings we might not be knowing. But in those cases, we can always take reference that, for example, the word reflective comes from the word reflect. So do our like the sentence says, beautiful we feel has nothing to do with the structure of our face or body. So is it that our face or body reflects beauty or it does not? Objective structure, objective is real structure. Conjunctive, again, if we don't know the exact meaning, we can take hint that conjunctive word comes from conjunction. So it has nothing to do with the aspect of human body. And subjective means something which is influenced, which is biased, that is subjective. So we can go with objective here because they want to say that the appearance of our body has nothing to do with the objective structure. How we look like has nothing to do with beauty. How do we know this is the case? Even the next sentence, which is a complete sentence, but it gives us a hint. It isn't what we look like that counts. It's how we feel inside. So the next complete sentence was actually a hint that the previous answer is that our features don't matter. It's the feeling that matters. So these two things we discussed earlier, reading till the full stop helps, and not skipping the non-blank questions also help us as a hint. Then the next sentence says, our self-assessments are in the end dash our relative degrees of self-love and self-contempt. Now we might classify this sentence as a difficult one, as a technical one. We might not really understand its meaning word by word, but what can we understand? Assessments is a common word we can understand. Assessments dash degrees of self-love. If we look at the options, is there any option which we can generally match with the word assessments? So we have called in, assessments called in, assessments based on, assessments ruled out, or assessments summed up. So we all have done some kind of study in our life, and we all have done assessments, and we know that assessments are based on certain criterias. We have never heard the word assessments ruled out something, or assessment sum up is to conclude. So this is also understanding of context. It's not always required to understand each and every word. Sometimes even combination of words is called understanding the context. That I have heard the word assessments with based on, because assess means to have some criteria on which you are judging something. So that's how we can select our answers if the context goes too technical into. Then there are people of ideal dash and exceptional beauty who cannot bear what they see in the mirror, and others who can contemplate. Another way of interpreting the context is to think that the word I need in the blank should belong to what? For example, do I need a word for a human being? Do I need a word for an organization? Do I need a word to describe a plant, an animal, or a non-living thing? What is it? So for example, in this sentence, they say there are people of dash, means we need a word for human beings. So we have distortions, apportions, proportions, and abortions. Have you heard a human being having distortions, a human being having apportions? But we do have proportions because the topic is about physical features. The very first sentence talked about nose is large, eyes are far. So the hair are not of this quality or that quality, means you were talking about the proportions of how we look like. And abortions obviously is a common word which goes into the medical context. So it's not about beauty. So the answer will be proportions. And the last one, at a tragic dash, there are heartbreakingly fine-looking people who starve themselves to ill health. Another interpretation of context is to judge your context on the basis of positive or negative requirement. So when we read this sentence, they said heartbreakingly people who starve themselves to ill health. Ill health is a negative word. Heartbreakingly is a negative word. That tells us that the word we need in the blank should also be negative. So humanity doesn't convey anything negative. Supreme does not convey anything negative. We have extreme, and anything which is extreme is harsh, it's negative, like we say extreme heat. So tragic extreme, though it's a combination, it falls into the category of a phrase or a collocation also. But even if we don't know that, we can still select the answer that we need a word which conveys something negative. And out of the options, there's only one word which is extreme, which conveys negativity. So overall, understanding the context means judging the context on positive, negative aspect, matching combination of words if we don't understand the complete sentence, not really skipping anything in between, and reading till the full stop. Another example that we have will clarify the things better. So this question says, some have begun to call it the information revolution. Technological changes brought new dramatic dash to Americans living in the 1990s. Now, technological changes can bring positivity also, can bring negativity also. So if we start to solve this question by reading just this much context, we might select the word challenges out of the options, that technical changes have brought challenges to the Americans, or it can be it has brought options, advantages. Any of the thing is possible at this point of time. So understanding the context also means that if your first sentence has a blank and it is a very general statement, you should not be filling your answer at that point of time. Rather, you can go 1-2 sentences ahead in the paragraph to get to know that which side the information is flowing, and then come back to your first answer. So if you read the next sentence, it says, from the beginning of the decade until the end, new forms of entertainment, commerce, research, work, and communication became commonplace. Let's look at this writing style. New forms of entertainment, new forms of commerce, new forms of research. It's a positive writing style because new forms does not convey anything negative. So you can go back and we know that the previous answer has to be positive. So out of the options, we should not be looking at challenges or puzzles or conclusions. Rather, the answer should be options, which might not be our first preference if we would be solving the first blank first without reading ahead. The next sentence says, the dash force behind much of this change was an innovation properly known as the internet. Collocations play a very important part. There should be a list of collocations you should be maintaining. For example, driving force is a collocation, it's a combination. If we look at the options otherwise, let's say we don't know driving force is a collocation or a combination. We have uninspiring, insinuating, unremitting. Again, sometimes the options are such that they are very easy to be eliminated. Unremitting, all the words that start with un are negative. The words that start with in are generally negative. So even here, you can select your answer based on positive, negative, that the sentence is positive. So the words starting with un and in cannot be my answers. The words that start with dis are negative. The words that start with im are negative, imperfect, dishonored, unimportant. Most of the words are from the negative family. So this could also be a hint that our answer is driving force here because that's a neutral word. Going ahead, they say personal computers had become widespread by the end of this year. Through a device called a modem, individual users could link their computer to a dash of information using conventional phone lines. We will be doing the basic grammar rules in the later part of the video, but how to apply them when you're solving your question. So I have a blank after A. The answer should be a noun. That's something you will learn in the basic grammar list. So we need a noun. We have relief of information, sorry, magnitude of information, bulk, wealth, and volume. So we are talking about what kind of information we have in a computer. If we connect a computer to the internet, we will have a dash of information. Volume of information, can we quantify information? No, whereas volume is used for quantitative things. Bulk is for wholesale. When we just want to say that something is in bulk means a lot of quantity. But that quantity may be relevant, may be irrelevant. Both cases go with bulk. Magnitude and intensity are the words that we use in physics context. For example, magnitude or velocity, magnitude, intensity of sound so it goes into physical context. So we can select wealth of information because wealth means lot of, and wealth also conveys meaningful things will be there because wealth is not something which is not important. And they say upon its dash in 1983, the Apple Lisa computer was supposed to revolutionize personal computing, but interest in Lisa was minimal due to its nearly $10,000 price tag and the introduction of the much more dash something a year later. So again, proper nouns, we can always skip. Something that starts with capital letter is a proper noun. The context is about money, 10,000 price tag, introduction of much more dash. Let's match a word with money perspective. Convenient, affordable, advanced, formidable. And affordable is a word that we use for cost efficiency. So we can go with affordable computer, which came a year later. That's why the first computer was not very much in demand. So positive, negative can help us a lot in understanding the context. It is important for understanding the sentences in the passage, as well as it is important to eliminate the options out of the options given. When we say that you have to justify connectors, what do we really mean by that? So if we read just from here, films may differ from other dash of narrative. What are those things? Literary, fiction, television, drama, for instance, in the medium used and the representational conventions. So films may differ from other dash of. Again, there's a grammatical rule that before of, if you have a blank, you always have to fill that blank with a noun. You have differ from other type or other kinds. Singular plural plays a very important role. We haven't talked about this yet. So type and kinds are kind of synonyms. How do we select one? Here, one is singular, one is plural. So it's not about thinking, should type be the answer or should kind be the answer? It's about thinking whether I need a word with S or I need a word without S. So when we read ahead again, in the hyphens, we have literary, fiction, television, drama, more than one thing. That means the answer has to be plural. So most of the times or many of the times we really feel that the meaning of the word was the basis on selecting it, but that's not the case. Rather than meaning of the word, it's about the presentation of the word, whether it is presented in a positive form, negative form, singular form, plural form, that makes the difference. So we can say kinds because we need a word which can denote more than one thing here. Then in the next sentence, we have however. Correct way of reading the connectors is whenever we have a connector between two commas, we should read it in the beginning of the sentence. For example, however, they do dash with literary fiction and television drama, the basic structure and functions of narrative. When we did the first slide, I said questioning the pronouns is very important. So this they is a pronoun here. We should not read the sentence as they do. We should rather read the sentence saying films do dash with literary fiction. If we say they do, a lot of words will keep matching with it. But when we say films do, then only a specific words in the film context will match with that sentence. So however means whatever we said in the previous sentence, we have to go opposite to this sentence. That's what is meant by justifying the connectors. So if the previous sentence was positive, this one has to be negative. So basically whatever the previous sentence said, we have to say opposite of that. Previous sentence said that films may differ from other things. So, however, they do something same should be our answer. So let's see which word conveys similarity here. Films do dash the basic structure and functions of narrative. Can we say films do spare with? Spare word does not come with film. Films coordinate with literary fiction and television drama. Coordination can be between two things who can work together. So you cannot say films do coordination with fiction. Rather, films do share with fiction and drama the structure and functions of narrative. Means both of them have the same structure and functions. So fiction, television, and films, they share the basic structure. Share means they have same basic structure, which makes it opposite to the previous sentence, which was talking about differences between the things. So if we look at the connectors, you will always get an idea beforehand that what do I need to put in this blank. For example, we did that previous sentence was differ, so this sentence has to show same something. So before even looking at your options, you can get an idea on what you need here. Again, there's an example of questioning pronouns. Pricing theory can be quite complex in a business organization. There are many factors by which the price of a product is set, including demand and supply, cost, profit, depending on the type of organization. Therefore, it has to dash the appropriate price. If you read a sentence like this, it has to. Let's put the options. It has to pay the price, makes sense. It has to determine the price, makes sense. It has to calculate the price, also makes sense. But when we put in place of it the noun, which is organization, organization has to pay the price. Business organizations don't pay the prices for the products. Consumers pay the prices for the products. Business organization has to determine the price. Make sense? That whatever, let's say you have a business, so you will decide the price of your product. Business organization has to calculate the appropriate price. Now, what is a more business related term? Calculation or determine? So we'll go with determine. Calculation also means plus minus multiplication. Mathematics would be more calculation answer. And because we are in a business context, so we'll go with determine, because businesses find out, determine the price by performing calculations like demand, supply, cost, profit. So they determine the price. So again, conclusion, if we question the pronouns, if we put the word in place of it, they, their, its, his, her, it makes the context more understandable for us. If you're reading complete sentences, if you are judging the context on the basis of positive, negative, whether we need a word with S, whether we need a word without S, those things matter. Moving ahead, bit of understanding on grammar, because we do have questions based on grammar coming in the exam. Or let's say there can be instances in which the language of the context is very technical. So some of the things that can help us, if we understand the requirement from grammar point of view. So if your sentence is complete without the blank, in those cases, the blank can only be filled with adjectives or adverbs. Nouns and verbs cannot be the answers in those cases. Example, let's read this sentence without the blank. Spring is the time to start your own garden. It's a complete sentence. Next one, you should have the tools to keep your hands and arms safe from getting hurt. Even if you're not reading blanks in between, the sentences are making sense. Cat allergy is an increasing phenomenon. So these kind of sentences can only be filled with adjectives or adverbs. Very easy to identify adverbs. All the words that end with ly are adverbs. Plus, this is a list that you can take note of. So combinedly, it's very easy. Ly plus this list of 12-15 words, they are all adverbs. And adjectives are describing words. So anything which tells us something is good or bad is a description. So for example, here we say, spring is the time to start your garden. Spring is a good time, spring is a bad time. So any word which will answer good or bad will be an adjective. Spring is the perfect time. You should have the tools, good tools or bad tools. So any word which can describe like perfect tools, correct tools, direct tools, or anything good or bad will be the adjective. Cat allergy is increasing phenomena. How increasing it is? Rapidly. Now there's also segregation. How do we know we need adjective or adverb? This is also pretty easy. So you just have to look at what is written after the blank. If after the blank the word is a noun, you will fill the blank with adjective. If after the blank you have a verb, you will fill the blank with adverb. Not very difficult. Increasing is an action. All the words which convey actions are verbs. So increasing is verb, so we fill the blank with ly, adverb. Grown. Growing is an action. Grown is an action. So we fill the blank with adverb from this list. The fan base has grown. The fan base has already grown. Let's read this one. Sydney is going to become the largest exporter of beef in the world. Sentence is complete. What is written after the blank is verb. So we will fill the blank with adverb. So a simple conclusion. If the sentence is complete, the sentence can be filled with adjective or adverb only. How to decide? If after the blank there is a verb, we will fill the blank with adverb. If after the blank there is a noun, we will fill the blank with adjective. It might seem technical in the beginning, but if you start applying these things gradually, it may take 4, 5, 6 days, but then you'll realize how simplified it has made your question solving, because you are not even looking at the irrelevant words. Irrelevant words would mean you are looking at nouns, wherever the blank can only have adjectives. You are looking at verbs, where it can only be an adverb coming in the blank. So these things, yes, they are technical, but they're not that difficult. The same thing we have a same rule for noun and verb as well. So if the sentence is incomplete, what comes in the blank will be noun or verb. Let's read this. He's off sketching and watercolor. Doesn't make sense? The were filled with people. No sense. The of domestic fires. Again, doesn't make sense. Reading the sentence will put you in a very easy category. Is it complete or incomplete? Incomplete sentences can be filled with nouns or verbs. So what are nouns? We have identification. Easy to remember, recall, identify. All the words which end with these words, T-I-O-N, S-I-O-N, E-R, O-R, N-E-S-S, M-E-N-T, H-O-O-D, S-H-I-P. So these are basically the suffixes. Whichever words have these suffixes, those all are nouns. So you have the examples. A-G-E, you have language. A-N-C-E, importance. E-N-C-E, influence. I-T-Y, identity. L, only T-Y, cruelty. I-S-T, pianist. I-S-M, socialism. So you can simply look at the word and you can find out that it is a noun because it ends with one of these things. So not difficult. Once you know the identification, you can easily find a noun. What are verbs? Now, verbs are actions. Anything which conveys an action is a verb. Let's look at the sentences once again. His dash of sketching. Also, there's one more hint. You can also learn this part, examples of nouns, that where the blanks are to be filled with nouns are only these cases, which means whenever you have a blank between the and of, you have to fill a noun in that case. A blank after this, that, these, those, you need a noun in that case. A blank after a and the, you need a noun in that case. And a blank after apostrophe, we need a noun in that case. So if you have learned these 4-5 areas, you can easily apply them to the questions. For example, dash off. So we just did, if you have a blank before off, you need a noun in that case. The mastery of sketching and watercolor. The dash, if we have a blank after the, we need a noun in that case. The dash off, we need a noun if we have a blank between the and off. Humans have dash Earth's resources. So now coming on to verbs, there are again rules that we will be doing later on. Generally, has, have, had come with third form of verb. Can, could, may, might come with first form of verb. So we are applying the same things here. Humans have dash Earth's resources. So with have comes third form of verb. But applying the incomplete sentence check first. Humans have Earth's resources beyond its ability. That's an incomplete sentence. So now we have before the blank. So we have to fill it with third form of verb. So this is something that you can keep as a backup with you. That let's say you're trying to understand the context and you're not understanding anything, rather than reading the same sentence again and again, over and over again, what you can do is you can apply something from your backup plans. For example, okay, let's see if the sentence is complete or incomplete. If the sentence turns out to be complete without the blank, you know that you only have to look at the adjectives or adverb options. If the sentence is incomplete, you only have to look at the nouns or verbs options. So understanding the context comes first. Like I said, you can keep these things as backup strategies for yourself. Moving ahead. Now we have the basic grammar rules, which you have to learn otherwise as well, because this really helps even when we are understanding the context. Two or more options may seem correct as per contextual understanding. So at that point of time, the rules can help us, save us from selecting a wrong answer. So the basic rules, with to comes first form of verb. If we have a blank after the word to, we have to fill it with first form. For example, to increase, to decrease, to provide, to elevate. So first forms of verbs. If we have a blank after be, been, or being, any of the three words, the only options are third forms or continuous forms, which means EDs or ING forms of verbs. If we have a blank after of or by, you have to fill that blank with ING form of verb always. For example, the task of completing the assignment. It cannot be the task of complete the assignment. It will be always ING form of verb. Then if you have a blank before by, it always comes third form of verb. The answer is given by the student. You cannot say the answer is give by the student or the answer is gave by the student. So before by, if we have a blank, it will be third form of verb always. Similarly, if we have a blank after while or for, it comes with ING form of verb. While doing the task, I faced some difficulties. So while do the task is wrong. While performing the experiment, it will be ING form always. And just like we did before, has, have, or had, any of these three come with third form of verb again. Has provided, had provided, have provided. Always V3. All the modals, can, could, will, would, should, shall, may, might, all of them come with first form of verb. For example, he may come tomorrow. You cannot say he may came tomorrow, or even you cannot put an S with the modals. You cannot say he may comes tomorrow, or he may cames tomorrow, or he may coming tomorrow. It will always be he may come tomorrow, he shall come tomorrow, he will come tomorrow. So all the modals come with V1 form of verb. Where do we use V2? So we use second form of verb if we have a blank before than. So blank and then you have THA and than written. We need second form of verb there. So what are second forms of verbs? Cold is first form, colder is second, coldest is third. Cold, colder, coldest. Second form is colder. This area is colder than that area. So colder comes with than. This girl is more beautiful than that. So beautiful, more beautiful, most beautiful. So more beautiful is second form. It will come with than. So always V2s come with than. Then we have do, does, and did. If you have a blank after any of these, you will be fitting the blank with first forms of verbs again. If you have this, we have already done. This, that, these, those, they always come with noun forms. So for example, you can say these students, this student, those students, those teachers, those papers. So always come with nouns after that. What is the difference? This, that come with singular noun and these and those come with plural noun. So that's the difference. You can say this paper, these papers, that paper, those papers. So that's the difference. Few more. If you have a blank after possessive pronouns, his, her, its, our, my, their, they always come with a noun. This is her dress. So after her, if we have a blank, it will be noun. This is my dress. This is their house. So if you have a blank after these, you will look for a noun after them. This we have discussed. After a and the always comes a noun. And whenever we say after a and the comes a noun means before the noun can always come an adjective, like we discussed the complete, incomplete part. So if you have a blank between the and of, we will fill it with a noun. If we have a blank before of, we will fill that also with a noun, just like we did in the understanding of nouns part. If we have a blank after is, was, are, were, we fill that either with ed form, that's third form of verb, or continuous form, that's ing form of verb. This depends on the concept active passive of voices. Three last ones. If you have since with a sentence, this is very commonly being used in the questions, blanks questions. If you have since with a time period in the sentence, the tense will always be present perfect. Example, since 1987, she dash here. So if you have since, the answer will always be has, have plus third form. Always, no other tense can come in that place. And if the same thing comes with by 1987, the government dash globalization, the answer will always be had plus third form. So since, if there is since, the answer will be has, have plus third form. If you have by, then the answer will be had plus third form. And the last one, we have done it before. After apostrophes, if you have a blank, it will be filled with a noun. So these are some of the basic grammar rules which you should be applying every day when you're solving your question, so that you become so habitual of them that there's absolutely not a single extra second wasted on thinking of the rules. And that happens, you become habitual. The only thing is how oftenly you use them. If you use them occasionally, then yes, it will be time consuming thing. But if you use them very oftenly, you will become very quick at using them. One another aspect on which we get blanks in the exams, around 2 to 4 marks of the blanks are based on active passive. So it is also a technical aspect. So we have tried to simplify it for you. What you can do is you can learn this particular slide, that what is active and what is passive. You can just learn it. That if you have has, have, had plus third form, that's active. Has, have, had plus been plus ing, active. Has, have, had plus been plus third form, passive. Helping verbs is, are, was, were with ing is active, whereas is, are, was, were with third form is passive. If you have being plus third form, it's passive, and simple past tense is active. So you can learn this thing. How is it going to help us if you have learned this? Understanding the context. The concept of active passive, conceptual understanding. So look here, we have options. These kind of options is what we get when we have a blank based on active passive in the exam. We have been observed, are observing, observed, or were observed. So what you can do is, without even looking at the sentence, you can first of all, you can categorize which is active and which is passive because you have learned this thing. So for example, simple past tense, we did that. Simple past tense is active voice. If we have was, were with ed, it's passive voice. So this is what you already know because you have learned it. So have been observed is passive. Are observing is active. Observed is active. Were observed is passive. So you already know this. Now how to check whether we need active or passive in the sentence is also pretty easy. What you need to do is you just create a question, who dash, and that dash is this word, who observed. All the options will have the same verb. You just have to question who observed. And then you have to go and find the answer of this who in the sentences. So let's read this. The astronomers dashed the eclipses on the full moon day. So who observed? The answer is astronomers observed. If your answer of who is given before the blank, that's an active voice. Let's read one more. The children dashed the experiment carefully. Who observed? Children is the answer of who observed, where it is given before the blank. So this is also an active voice sentence. What is passive? Every sentence which has by, it's passive. So something again that we can cram. The eclipses dash by the astronomers. So who observed? Astronomers. That is given after the blank. Passive statement. The eclipses dash in the sky on December 23rd. Who observed the eclipses? The answer is not given. If the answer is not given, that is also passive sentence. So if you can carefully analyze and spend a few minutes on this slide, you will understand active passive for rest of the life. So it becomes very easy because active passive is nothing more than this. It's just who is doing the work given right side or left side. That way you can distinguish it's an active statement or a passive statement. And how to select your answers, you already have crammed it, what is active and what is passive. Let's do one. The astronomers dashed the eclipses. So this is active voice. What are the active options? Are observing and observed are the two active options that we have. Now, are observing or observed, this is present tense, this is past tense. So the answer is simply based on what tense your context is following. If your context is following active tense, then you can go with are observing. If your paragraph was in passive tense, then observed will be your answer. The same thing, let's do one for passive. The eclipses, okay, let's do first one. The eclipses dash by the astronomers. Two passive options we have. The eclipses have been observed or the eclipses were observed. What is the difference? Were is past tense, have is present tense. So again, we just need to check the overall context of the passage. If it is in present tense, we'll go with have been. If it is in past tense, we will go with were observed. So active passive, once again, you can cram what is active and what is passive. Once you have crammed it, then you just need to create a question. Who dash, whatever the verb is. And then you find the answer. If it is by, it's always passive. Otherwise, you can read the sentence and you will get the answer, which side the answer is. If it is left side before the blank, it is active. After the blank, the answer of who is given, that's passive voice. So this concept may need you to do 4, 5, 6 questions on it, but not more than that. Within 4 or 5 questions, you will master active passive very, very easily. What do we have next? Another thing that can help us is basis of elimination of synonyms. So what happens is a lot of times we get synonyms in the options. And yes, sometimes they are based on vocabulary. A lot of times they are not based on vocabulary. For example, the first one is if we have a synonym result and consequence. So one of the bases is to think positive, negative. If you need a positive answer, you will go with the result. If you need a negative answer, you will go with consequence. So all the times it's not about exactly knowing the meaning only. We also need to know in which context that particular word is used. So results are neutral, whereas consequences are particularly used when you want to say negative result of something. So that's also one way you can think on synonyms. Second is countable and uncountable is also a factor. For example, out of many and much, many comes with countable words and much come with uncountable words. So that's also a factor to consider when you have options which have these different contexts, countable and uncountable. Subject area makes a big difference. So we have blanks on medical context, we have biology context, economics, language, business, history. We have different contexts that the blanks come from. So if we have a medical context and the options are portion and dosage, so we'll obviously go with dosage over portion. Same if we have remedy and treatment. So remedy is something which is very homely. Example, if you have a rough throat, then you might be advised to have honey in warm water. That is a remedy. But if you go to a doctor and you get prescriptive medicines, that's a treatment. So if the context was medical, you'll go with treatment. If the context is general context, a conversative context, then we'll go with remedy. Similarly, members and shareholders, if the topic is about society, we'll go with members. If the topic is about business, share market kind of thing, then we'll go with shareholders. So the context, the subject area can also be a factor in taking your final call for your answer. The next is what I already told you, that it's very important that you know that I need my answer for a human being. I need my answer for an animal. I need my answer for an organization, because the words that we use for organizations, we cannot use those words for human beings. For example, plants are dash and need only water and sun. So I need an answer for plants, flexible or cranky. Now, cranky is a word, behavioral behavioral word that we use for human beings, particularly for kids, that this kid is really cranky, fussy. So we cannot call plants cranky, but yes, we can call plants flexible. Flexible means they are adjustable. They don't ask a lot. They just need water and sun. That's it. So this is how you can think of that, whether this word matches with this subject or it does not. Quantity and quality. Let's make a sentence. Let's say, I got immense dash from this award. Can we say I got immense pleasure? I framed the wrong sentence. It should be I got dash pleasure from this award. So can we say I got huge pleasure or I got immense pleasure? So huge goes more with size in terms of quantity, whereas immense also means a lot of, but more used with qualitative things like pleasure is not quantity. Similarly, we can use immense with happiness. Immense happiness. This award has given me immense happiness. But we cannot say this award has given me huge happiness. So difference in the understanding that how do we use this word, quantity wise or quality wise, that makes a difference. Academic strength plays a very important role. This simply means vocabulary. There may be two words which mean exactly same. So what basically is academic strength? What makes a word academically stronger than the other word? If that word is more used in verbal English language, that's a less academically stronger word. But if a word is used more in written English language, books, novels, articles, journals, writing pieces, that's a more academic word. So plan or framework, plan is a general word, framework is more academic, it means the same. Frequently asked questions, just to give an idea on how things vary. Affect and effect, one is a verb, one is a noun. So there can be confusions. You need to sort those confusions. When you're solving your question and something goes wrong, for example, you have confusions like these, that whether affect or effect was the answer. You selected one randomly, it goes right. You should not be just moving on to the next question. You knew that you faced a problem in making a choice between these two words. So you should be writing down, finding and writing down, because these things do come in the exam. So the one with A is a verb, the one with E is a noun. Toward and towards, there are words which have different spellings just because in UK English and US English, but they exactly mean the same. So one of the times there was a question a student was solving and the option was toward. He didn't select it. He knew that the answer should be towards, but he didn't select it, saying that I think towards should be the answer, but there's no S with toward. That's why I'm not selecting it. But the actual thing, toward and towards both are exactly same. The difference is only in the writing style. One is US and one is UK. So any of the options, if you get in the exam, you can select that. Few and a few, again, just to give you an example of how writing styles matter. If you have a few, that's a positive writing style. And if you have only few, that's a negative writing style. So for example, if I say there are a few students in the class, I want to say there are some students in the class. Whereas if I say few, then I want to say there are not many students in the class. Means I want to say there are less students in the class. So positive writing style, negative writing style makes a big difference in understanding the context, selecting the options, clarifying your confusions. So that's something you should definitely include in your solving. So this is all. We have covered a lot of things, many things, and definitely it will be too overwhelming at one point of time. But if you go by these things one by one, so I call it a LAP strategy, LAP, LAP. First step is learning. Learn the concepts one by one. Then adapting. Adapting basically means you adjust your strategies and your ways of doing by referring to what you have learned. And third is P for perfecting. So if you learn the strategies, you will adapt them in your questions. It will take time initially, but not in the long run. Once you're perfect at them, you will rather be able to solve your questions before the time finishes. Initially, when students adopt these strategies and they apply them in their questions, they generally face that I am taking extra long to solve the questions. Instead of 2.5 minutes, I'm taking like 4 minutes to solve the questions. That's perfectly fine because you are doing something new. You are applying something new, which you are not habitual at. You are referring to things side by side, which wastes a lot of time. But once gradually after 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, once you will become habitual and then more habitual, your brain will automatically start processing the rules side by side. We have even seen students solving the blanks from 4 minutes to 1.5 minutes. This actually helps in time saving, not time wasting. But it's all about how perfect you are at them. By saying this, we really don't mean that you have to use them. like I said in the very beginning, keep them as backup strategies that in case, let's say you are trying everything from your side and you're still not getting the desired score or your scores are not improving, then if you're not doing these things, that means you can apply some of them so that that difference in your scores is bridged some way. Because we cannot just keep on saying that I'm not improving. If all of these, some of these things, 1, 2, 3, 4 of these things you apply, your scores will improve definitely. So time management, initially it will take time. Take it as a disclaimer. When you start applying the rules and you feel that, oh, my time is increasing, it will. But gradually, it will be very, very less. So that's all for today's session. I hope it would be helpful. I hope it would improve your scores. So we will be coming up with many more sessions to help you in the future. But do let us know if you want us to cover any particular aspect or if you have any questions or doubts on this. So this is Ripon Preet Kaur signing off from Language Academy. Have a great day ahead.